When I began to truly transform my life, the first change I made was not to my finances, not to my relationships, not even to my career. It was to my mornings. The way you begin your day sets in motion a chain reaction that either builds momentum or steals it. The first hour after you wake is not just another 60 minutes. It is the most decisive window of your entire day. If you surrender it to distractions, to noise, or to the demands of others, you've already given away the power that should belong to you. Consider this: the mind is like fertile soil. In the morning, that soil is fresh, unmarked, ready to receive the first seeds of thought. If you allow negativity, chaos, or mindless scrolling to be planted there, it should not surprise you when frustration or aimlessness grows throughout the day. But if you deliberately sow seeds of clarity, gratitude, and focus, then the harvest will be one of productivity, peace, and progress. I began by structuring the first hour of my day as a sacred ritual. No phone, no noise, no urgency. Instead, I gave myself the gift of silence, reflection, and intentional movement. 10 minutes of reading something that stretched my thinking. 10 minutes of writing down what I wanted most from life. 10 minutes of physical movement to awaken the body. It wasn't complicated, it wasn't grand, but it was deliberate, and that deliberate start changed the texture of my entire existence. Psychologists tell us that the brain is highly impressionable in the first moments after waking. In this state, your subconscious mind is wide open, absorbing and imprinting ideas more deeply than at any other time of the day. So if you fill that space with direction and purpose, you are literally programming your mind for victory before the world has a chance to interfere. Think about the advantage that gives you, starting your day with intention, while the majority drift into it by accident. You don't need hours of rituals or a complicated routine. What you need is ownership. Ownership of your time, ownership of your focus, ownership of your energy. That first hour is not about doing everything. It's about setting the tone for everything that follows. So ask yourself, who do you want to be when you step into the world today? Because the answer is shaped not in the middle of the day, not at the end of it, but in that very first hour. Win that hour, and you've already begun winning the day. If the morning is the foundation of your day, then the mind is the foundation of your life. Everything you create, everything you achieve, and everything you become is first born in thought. That is why I began to treat my mind as something sacred, something to be guarded as carefully as a treasure chest filled with priceless gems. Because it is exactly that. Most people live unaware of the invisible stream of thoughts constantly flowing through their minds. They allow in every opinion, every piece of gossip, every doubt and fear broadcast by the world around them. And yet they wonder why their lives feel cluttered, why their direction feels uncertain, why anxiety creeps in like an uninvited guest. The truth is simple: the quality of what goes into your mind determines the quality of what comes out of your life. I had to learn that guarding my mind was not about avoiding reality. It was about choosing which reality to feed. Every book you read, every conversation you engage in, every song, every headline, every voice, it's all food for your mind. And like the body, the mind will reflect what it's fed. Garbage in, garbage out. Inspiration in, possibility out. You cannot fill your mind with constant distraction and negativity and expect to produce clarity, purpose, or peace. I began to replace noise with nourishment. Instead of absorbing fear-filled headlines in the morning, I turned to works of philosophy and success. Instead of surrounding myself with people who complained about life, I sought out those who spoke with vision, with conviction, with hope. Slowly, the fog that once clouded my thoughts began to lift. Ideas became sharper. Possibilities felt closer. My inner dialogue grew stronger than the outer noise. There is also a psychological truth at play here. Thoughts repeated often enough become beliefs. Beliefs crystallize into actions. Actions repeated consistently shape destiny. So if you allow harmful or limiting thoughts to cycle unchecked, they eventually form the very barriers that keep you from advancing. But when you deliberately feed your mind empowering ideas, you dissolve those barriers and open new paths forward. So guard your mind. Guard it with the same vigilance you would guard your most valuable possession, because it is. Ask yourself daily, what am I allowing in? What voices am I giving power to? What thoughts am I rehearsing? Because your mind is not just receiving information, it is writing the script for the life you are about to live. The moment you decide to protect it, to guide it, to feed it with truth and possibility, you begin the transformation. Guard your mind, and your life will inevitably follow. One of the most liberating discoveries of my life was this: clarity creates power. For years, I carried vague ambitions in my mind, ideas about success, wealth, freedom, and fulfillment. But they were cloudy, like trying to look at the world through a fogged window. The moment I began writing things down, the fog lifted. What had once been wishful thinking became something I could touch, shape, and direct. There is something almost mystical about putting pen to paper. The very act of writing forces you to define what you want with precision. Most people say they want a better life, but what are compared to what? Better in what areas? The mind cannot pursue shadows. It requires form, detail, and focus. Writing gives your desires structure, and structure gives them life. When you take the time to record your goals, you are making a contract with yourself. You are telling your subconscious mind, "This is what I will move toward." And the subconscious, once given a definite order, begins to work tirelessly to align your thoughts, decisions, and even your opportunities with that instruction. Without clarity, the mind wanders. With clarity, the mind builds. I began by writing my goals daily, not as a chore, but as an act of creation. I would write them in the present tense, as if they already existed, to condition my belief and reinforce my vision. Over time, I noticed my decisions became sharper. I could recognize which actions pulled me closer to my goals and which ones distracted me. Clarity sharpened my focus like a blade, and that focus became the tool that carved a new reality. There's also a psychological depth here worth noting. When your goals remain unspoken or unwritten, they drift in and out of awareness. They compete with 1,000 other thoughts that bombard the mind each day. But the moment you capture them in writing, you anchor them. They move from imagination into the realm of intention, and intention, when reinforced, becomes an unstoppable force. Ask yourself, how many of your greatest desires are still only floating in your head? How much longer will you allow them to drift like leaves in the wind? The pen is your anchor. The page is your stage. Write down what you want, and you give your mind the script it needs to begin rehearsing success. Vague goals lead to vague results. Clear goals create clear outcomes. If you want power in your life, you must first create clarity. Write it down and watch the invisible begin to take form. As I continued this journey of transformation, one truth revealed itself over and over again: no one climbs alone. We like to imagine ourselves as completely independent, as if our success is carved out by sheer force of personal will. But the reality is more subtle and far more powerful. We rise or fall to the level of those we surround ourselves with. Think for a moment about the people you spend the most time with. Their words, their attitudes, their energy, all of it leaves an imprint on you, whether you realize it or not. If they speak constantly of limitations, you will begin to shrink your vision. If they complain endlessly about how unfair life is, you will begin to feel victimized by your own circumstances. But if they think big, act bold, and refuse to settle, you will find yourself lifted by their standard. Human beings are contagious, and you must decide whether you are catching mediocrity or catching greatness. This is why I became ruthless with my associations. I was not cruel. I did not cut people out of my life with bitterness, but I did make a deliberate choice to spend my most valuable energy with those who sharpened me, who challenged me, who demanded I step into a higher version of myself. Conversations with such people are never idle. They ignite ideas, awaken possibilities, and remind you of your own capacity. There is a psychological principle at work here as well. The subconscious mind is highly influenced by repetition and environment. If you consistently hear words of doubt, those words sink in. If you repeatedly see examples of complacency, that example becomes your reference point for what is normal. But when you immerse yourself in ambition, in discipline, in vision, you normalize excellence. What once seemed extraordinary becomes your standard. And when excellence becomes your standard, transformation becomes inevitable. This is not only about people, it is about all forms of association. The books you read, the mentors you follow, the voices you allow into your ear, they are shaping you every day. If you want to grow, you must deliberately choose influences that elevate you. So ask yourself with honesty, who are you becoming simply by being in the presence of those around you? Because whether you like it or not, they are pulling you in a direction. The question is, are they pulling you closer to your potential or further away from it? Choose your associations with wisdom, because in the end, you will resemble them more than you realize. There came a point when I realized that waiting on motivation was a trap. Too often I heard people say, "I'll start when I feel ready," or "I'll do it when the mood strikes." But the mood rarely came, and when it did, it vanished as quickly as it arrived. Motivation is a spark. It ignites for a moment, but unless you build something stronger to sustain it, it burns out and leaves you in the dark. What truly carries a person from where they are to where they dream of being is not motivation. It is discipline. Discipline is the bridge between thought and reality, between intention and achievement. It is the force that allows you to act regardless of emotion, regardless of circumstance. Where motivation whispers, "I feel like it," discipline declares, "I will, whether I feel like it or not." And it is in that declaration that progress is born. When I first understood this, my perspective on success shifted completely. I stopped asking myself, "Do I feel like doing this today?" and started asking, "Is this action aligned with who I intend to become?" That single shift freed me from the chains of inconsistency. The truth is, feelings are fickle. They change with the weather, with sleep, with circumstance. But habits built on discipline become immovable pillars. They do not bend to moods. They carry you forward through them. Psychologists often note that the human brain is wired for efficiency. Repeated behaviors carve deep grooves in our neural pathways, making them easier to perform over time. Discipline uses this to your advantage. By acting consistently, even when you don't want to, you train your brain to normalize success-oriented behaviors. What was once difficult becomes second nature. What once required effort becomes automatic. Think about it. Every great accomplishment in history was less about bursts of passion and more about the steady grind of discipline. The writer who sits down daily to produce words, even uninspired ones. The athlete who trains relentlessly regardless of the weather or their mood. The entrepreneur who works on the vision when no one is watching. Discipline, not motivation, is the common thread. So I challenge you to examine your life and ask, are you depending on fleeting sparks of motivation, or are you building the unshakable foundation of discipline? Because one will lift you for a moment, but the other will carry you for a lifetime. Motivation is fragile. Discipline is freedom. Choose discipline and you choose transformation. For a long time, I believed the goal of life was to avoid struggle. I thought comfort was a reward, ease was success, and the absence of difficulty was proof that I was on the right path. But the more I studied life, the more I realized how false that belief was. The very moments I tried to run from, the failures, the obstacles, the resistance, were the same moments that shaped me. Growth is never born in comfort. It is always forged in struggle. Every great achievement demands a price. The price is not money, not talent, not even opportunity. It is your willingness to endure difficulty. Struggle has a way of refining you. It strips away weakness, excuses, and illusions. It exposes who you really are, and in that exposure you are given a choice to remain the same or to rise. Those who rise are the ones who understand that struggle is not the enemy, it is the teacher. Think about it in the simplest of terms. A muscle only grows when it is pushed to failure. Steel is only strengthened when exposed to fire. Diamonds are formed under immense pressure. In nature, nothing becomes stronger by avoiding stress. It becomes stronger by enduring it. Why would we imagine human character is any different? When I embraced this truth, my relationship with struggle changed entirely. I stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and started asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That one question turned setbacks into lessons and failures into stepping stones. Suddenly, difficulties no longer felt like punishments. They became invitations. Invitations to become wiser, tougher, sharper. There is also a profound psychological shift that occurs when you stop resisting struggle. Resistance creates frustration, but acceptance creates empowerment. By leaning into the challenge, you remove its power to paralyze you. Instead of draining you, it begins to strengthen you. You start to see problems not as walls blocking your path, but as doors leading to your evolution. So the next time you face resistance, pause before cursing it, pause before wishing it away. Ask yourself, what strength is being demanded of me here? What skill? What wisdom? What resilience is being carved into me through this hardship? Because the truth is clear. Success is not handed to those who avoid the struggle. It is handed to those who embrace it, learn from it, and are transformed by it. Struggle is not the obstacle, it is the path.